Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
Okay, folks, welcome to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jonathan Brickman, and let me see. Yep, still the morning. We got with us Ryan McComber from the law firm of Figari and Davenport in Dallas. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. So just to kick things off here with the theme of the show, Latte with a Lawyer, what's your morning beverage of choice?
Morning beverage, I'm a big Americano fan. So that's pretty much every morning I have a couple of those, and that's my morning drink every morning.
That's your petrol.
Yeah.
That's strong stuff, the Americano.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. It's we started out probably drinking a little bit of a lesser octane drink, but this one's kind of settled in our family. My wife and I, she's a lawyer as well.
She is.
We hit those every morning. So.
Oh, nice. Excellent. And you're in your office, I assume. You guys back to your office?
I am. We've been back a few months now. And so it's been nice to get back in the office. Most everyone's in and out again, and it's got kind of the buzz that it had pre-COVID. So that's nice. A lot more collaborative now that everyone's in person.
Oh, good. And are you guys sort of changing the makeup of the office now? More some hybrid, or no? Are you going everybody back in?
We are. We do hybrid. It's nice also for the staff. Dallas, like a lot of big cities, it's sometimes hard for your staff to live nearby.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of worked with the staff to give them some flexibility to work from home a few days a week. And that seems to be making everybody happy. And also the lawyers, a lot of lawyers that were more resistant to working from home had to learn how to do it over COVID. And so everyone's trying to be a little bit more flexible. Found that the courts actually seem to have stuck with the Zoom hearings a lot more than I thought they would. Even courts that traditionally wanted everything in person have been more comfortable doing that now via Zoom. So I think the change is probably permanent for the most part. I think we're going to see a lot more Zoom hearings and Zoom depositions and those kind of things in the litigation realm. So it'll be interesting to see if there's ever a swing back to everything being in person, but so far it looks like it's not going to be.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. No, I think a lot of the things that happened because of COVID are here to stay. They're just more efficient. There's no reason to be in person for some things, right?
That's absolutely right. And it's interesting. I mean, when you're a younger lawyer, you want to do the travel and go out of town and take depositions. But once you're a little bit older, you got a family, you've got a lot of commitments around the house. It's harder to unplug and go do that. So I think now even, my recommendation, depositions I think are better in person. I think for more peripheral type witnesses that aren't as important, it's just as easy to knock them out with a Zoom deposition, get some testimony that you need. If you don't think they're going to be a key witness to your trial, then I think it's probably okay. And it saves the client some money, saves you some travel time. And so I think that's probably here to stay as well.
Well, why do you think depositions are better in person than virtual?
What's interesting, in person, you get a better opportunity to look into your witness's eyes and see how comfortable they are, how good you think they're going to be on the stand. I think documents is the big thing. As during the course of my career, depositions have been largely focused on documents, and mostly emails and text messages have really taken over the substance of a deposition. So if you're moving multiple documents around, you can do it on Zoom, but it gives them a level of comfort if your witness is able to touch the document, read it, manipulate it. And you seem to get cleaner testimony about documents in person. And then two, there's always a thing, lawyers think that people are more apt to tell the truth when you're sitting in front of them. And witnesses seem to be, there's a little more pressure on truthfulness if a lawyer's sitting right in front of them and everyone's got the hot lights on and they have to give their testimony in front of a group of people, as opposed to being comfortable in your house. And that's good for both if it's your witness being deposed, you don't want your witness to be too comfortable in a Zoom deposition and they got their dogs barking in the background. if your witness needs to focus and really give some good testimony to support your case, it's nice to have them in person as well, so they're focused.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, interesting. You're kind of touching on things I'm interested about, like knowing, are they telling the truth, not telling the truth?
Right.
I mean, aside from your own instincts, I mean, how else do you try to figure that out?
Well, a lot of things, just the tics that people have. In Ocean's 11, there's a famous scene where you've got Brad Pitt and Matt Damon talking, and he says, "Don't look up. They think you don't know the truth. Don't look down because they'll think you're lying." Lawyers, over time, you pick up on these fidgeting, shifty eyes, the things that sometimes are a tell for people when they're not telling the truth. And it's almost, it's hard to read those things in a Zoom deposition. And so that's one of the things I think in person. And then one of the old things that I was taught as a young lawyer, you like to videotape people who you think might not tell the truth, because people are more apt to tell the truth if they're on video, and you can come back and show someone else a video of someone talking. And then frankly, we just live in a time period now that people are more comfortable not telling the truth. So unfortunately, with that, you kind of have to use all the tools in your toolbox to make sure you're getting people to testify truthfully and honestly, and put all the pressure you can on them, and just being in person seems to have more of an effect, where you make sure you can get that type of testimony.
Yeah, yeah. Now, when you're doing these, you're talking about being in a jury trial.
Yeah, both. If you're going to have a jury trial, a lot of times you're playing deposition clips for the jury, whether if a witness isn't there, you're just trying to impeach a witness. And so, having the video is obviously more effective instead of the lawyers. I mean, the old thing we have to do is you put one attorney in the witness stand and another attorney questions, and they just read the deposition testimony back and forth, which isn't very effective, especially in our day and age when people like to see videos and like to see recordings. And a lot of times jurors don't believe things happen unless they see it on a video. They're said, well, how could this have been? How can there not be a video or recording or a document showing this being the case? And so really your production value matters a lot when you're showing witness testimony. And so videoing it, you think you're probably getting better testimony. And then the jurors as well, they judge people's credibility based on how they come across in the video. So it's always a challenge for a defense lawyer putting your witnesses up. You not only have to prepare them to give their deposition, but you somewhat have to be a film director in a way, and you have to tell them not to fidget. You have to show them what they look like on camera, and make sure they're not doing these things, either they're nervous or just not comfortable, that'll make a jury think that they're not telling the truth.
Yeah. So we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, because I want to talk about just how you actually get in those scenarios, what kind of law you practice, and that brings you to litigation.
Yeah, so I started out, so I graduated law school in 2003. I've been in litigation ever since then. My practice has kind of developed into probably half of my practice is health, life, and disability defense. And so I will be representing disability insurance companies, health insurance companies, life insurance companies, whether it's their financial products or policies or whatever disputes they have in that realm. About 25% is just pure commercial litigation. So that would be defending companies in contract disputes, federal statutory type claims. And then probably 25% is a mix of class action defense and labor and employment type work. The firm I'm at now, Figari and Davenport, we were formed in 1986. We were one of the first litigation boutiques in Dallas. So the founders split off from what was then the largest firm in Dallas, which was Johnson and Swanson, and wanted to start a kind of a sporty litigation-only commercial lit practice where they just had trial lawyers. And so my mentors that I've worked with here since 2007, that's been my focus, just doing trial work like that.
Okay. So you're working on behalf of insurance companies?
Yeah, insurance companies, businesses, some we do some individual representation, if they're in disputes with companies or former companies, the employee disputes when they change jobs, those type of litigation matters. So really anything that deals with a courtroom, we've either done it or learn how to do it if the client needs us to.
Okay. Yeah. So how often are you in the courtroom versus settling the case?
It's the jury trial, everyone talks about the jury trial being a shrinking thing. In 2007, when I came to this firm, we probably averaged two major trials a year. And I put in that category like large arbitration type proceedings, which would be similar to a big trial. My practice is about one trial a year. And that's probably been true for my career since 2007, whether it's a jury trial or a large arbitration or a bench trial. So it's unfortunately for young lawyers who want to do litigation, you're not seeing a lot of that real time court time that gives you that experience. And as a young lawyer, until you see your depositions that you take played in front of the jury multiple times, it takes a while to hone your craft to figure out where you're headed to when you don't get to the end that often. So, but there is, it's funny since COVID has somewhat tapered down, the jury trials have picked back up, and we're seeing a lot of more hearings and a lot more jury trials that look like they're going to go towards the end of this year.
Okay, I get the sense you enjoy the courtroom experience.
Yeah, the courtroom experience is great. It's an opportunity. I mean, it's like anything. You get someone usually to make a ruling, and you find out a lot of times what lawyers do. It's a fight, lots of fights, a lot of small fights with other lawyers and other parties, and it's nice to get an outcome. It's obviously the best to win, but your client only benefits from you moving the case forward. And that's usually what it takes: getting in front of the judge, getting some rulings that go your way, and then either resolving the case if things aren't going your way, or try the case if you can't get it resolved for a reasonable amount. But really, that's the goal. Any litigator, if you don't want to be in the courtroom, you're not doing a great job for your client, because that's the end game, and you're not going to give your client the best opportunity to have a good result unless you're prepared for that end game.
Got it. So you're preparing as if you're going to trial every time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way, because it's interesting. You really never know which of your cases are going to end up going to trial. And if you picked a case on the front end and said, I think this is going to be the case we're going to put in front of a jury, there's really no way. It's amazing how many things can change over the course of a lawsuit. Parties file bankruptcy, business goals change. And so it's usually the case you least expect to go to trial that ends up in front of the courthouse. So you really have to prepare each one like that's where you're going to end up, and outline a game plan to get there, or you won't be ready to try the case.
Got it. How willing so you're on the defense side mostly, so people are spending money to continue the litigation. I mean, how willing and when do people make the decision, like, to keep pushing it further to trial, even though they're spending money? Like, how do they, as opposed to settling it quickly, how do people make that decision? How do you guide them towards that?
You want to give your client as much information as possible. And that really starts at the beginning. You can try to give a good budget. You can't see in the future and all the things are going to happen, but you want to tell your client what they can reasonably expect. And if the lawyer's done it enough, you've got a good general idea of the hours it's going to take, the amount of money it's going to take. And then you talk a lot about risk. You've got kind of the sunk cost of your litigation budget. And then, no lawyer's going to promise you victory in any case, but you can tell a client realistically how you think the case is going to go. And then it just becomes a business decision based on the risk they're willing to take and the amount they're willing to spend to take that risk. And so really, you just want to give a client all the information that they can have. And because you don't want any surprises at the end of a case. You don't want any surprises in the middle of the case. Just give them that information, and then they make a decision if it's worth it or not. Most of the cases that, in my experience, end up at trial are the cases where one side wants way too much money, and the other side is like, I'm looking at the litigation budget and the risk, and I'm not willing to do that. And so those are really the cases nowadays, with the limited number of cases that end up at trial, are the ones that go in at least the commercial setting, because they're really unsettlable, and so both parties really have to pay their lawyers to go all the way to the end to get a resolution. And
I
so
see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
But like you said, a lot of times the risk and reward are so out of whack that it makes a lot more sense for a client, even in a case that they think they would win, to just make a business decision to resolve it early. And so you just want to make sure as a lawyer that you're giving your client the full menu of their options, and then to as you go along, that prevents any surprises, and then they can make a decision, whether they want to resolve it. And usually, any case, there's periods of time in each case where it makes sense for the parties to talk about settlement. And so you just want to make sure that when you get to that moment when it makes sense to have those conversations, that you have them, and you make sure everybody's still on the same page. Because usually at the end of the day, most lawsuits, even if you win, you've spent a lot of money to get there, so it's not exactly a happy situation. And then obviously if you lose, that's a even less ideal situation for your client. And so you want to just make sure there's no surprises and everyone knows the possibilities and the outcomes. And as a lawyer, and that's how I was always trained by my mentors, is, you got to be open and transparent, and tell people all the risks, and let them, guide them with the decisions, but they need to make those decisions on their own if it makes business sense for them.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of tools do you use? Use focus groups and mock trials to get ready?
You do. I mean, I'll tell you, focus groups are really great. They're great for getting people to ask you questions. I mean, that's one thing that's really important as a lawyer. You get really immersed into the cases you're working on, and you almost lose sight of what questions someone who just takes a fresh look at this dispute would have. And so one of the things focus groups are great about is they say, well, what about this? Can you answer this question for me? And really it helps a lawyer focus in on what's really important and what people are going to think about when they hear your facts. And I'll tell you too, then the mock trials are a great resource as well. We're a big fan at our firm of using those, testing our themes, and I think it's also good for your client. It's a good opportunity for them to see their lawyers argue the case, see the reaction that potential jurors have to the case. And it also helps too, if you've told your client all along that it isn't a great case, they start hearing, a bunch of jurors emphasize that it is not a great case. It also can help you get it more into a settlement posture at that point.
Manage your client, help you manage your client. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, a lot of times, you never know. People come into the jury box with their own life experiences, their own biases, their own. They bring a lot of things in there that can have a really big impact on how they take the evidence and how they take the actions of everyone else involved. That maybe if you wouldn't understand, if it's all part of your business and how your business typically works. It gives them that kind of fresh perspective of, you're not having business people decide your cases always. It's a group of your peers who may or may not have all your experience and education and background. They may have that in other fields, but these people are going to make your business decision for you. And so a lot of times that makes a lot more sense to a client to go back and say, okay, well, if we're going to make a business decision, let's make it without the jury being involved. And that can help you kind of get a case into settlement mode if it's where it needs to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's really a wild card, isn't it, with a jury?
Yeah, you never know. What's funny? It is a wild card, but one of the things I've seen over the years is jurors usually get it right.
Really?
Okay. There are times when they don't. There's times when things happen that they don't get right. But as far as if you've got two people that are giving testimony and one person they can tell usually who the good guy and the bad guy are in any case. whether they get legally there the right way. But that's one of the things that has seemed to hold true. There can be mistakes and things, but they usually, at the end of the day, get it enough to get a generally the right decision.
Because you think they're just picking up on the emotions of the person speaking, or they're picking up, they're sensing things that have nothing to do with like the facts. Is that what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And two, if someone comes in and this is their business, they catch on who really cares the most about the dispute. They get who really is trying to do the right thing. And a lot of times the first reaction people have, there can be a lot of swing in how a juries react. So one of the things you see sometimes in a mock jury is that after opening statements, the jurors will swing one way or the other pretty hard. Either they're really for the defense or really for the plaintiff. And as they settle in and hear more of the evidence and more of the facts, it kind of goes back towards the middle, and they really are trying to understand the information that you're giving and trying to get to the right decision. So after a few days, especially like a jury trial, they've got a good sense of what's going on. They may not know exactly, legally what it's going to look like on the jury charge, the outcome's going to be, but they get a good sense of people and what's really happening. And that's refreshing. I mean, at the end of the day, you always hope as a lawyer that they see how passionate your client is about their case and about their business decisions they made, or them trying to do the right thing, depending on the type of case it is. And so it is refreshing that jurors pick up on that and ultimately, try to use that as part of their deliberations.
Interesting. So the system's pretty good then.
It's good. It's probably the best system there is. It's, every system has its problems, but, clearly our founders thought jury trials were important to protect us, because it was a pretty unique thing, but it protected us against a tyrannical type judge who was appointed a court that would have control over these type of decisions between individuals and companies, and they thought it was best for the citizens to do that. And it probably is the best system.
Very interesting. So tell me, how did you become a lawyer? What did that look like, that sort of journey for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. There was always kind of an interest there. My grandfather was a lawyer, and so there was some interest, but I ended up at OU, and I got a letters degree, which is kind of a traditional liberal arts degree, and then ultimately had to figure out what I was going to do for a living. And after I got that degree, and that was so then I applied to law school and really immediately took to the litigation aspect of it, and really never looked back. So
where'd you go to law school?
I went to SMU in Dallas.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So letters, is that unique to Oklahoma? Letters?
It's every school has kind of a traditional liberal arts. At UT, it's called like Plan 2. So it's like a history, philosophy, and literature, focus. It's kind of your traditional, I guess, of a traditional education you would have gotten before so much specialty type educations were developed.
Yeah.
So really, there's not a lot you can do with it unless you're going to go to medical school or law school. It's not real marketable just out of college.
Yeah. Well, my daughter's getting one of those at Skidmore College.
Right.
Right. Philosophy, sociology.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun in college, but yeah, it's not much on the job training there.
Yeah. I remember my grandfather used to say to me, he'd always ask the question, so what are you going to do with that? How are you going to make a living? Right. Like,
Right.
very practically.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents have those same questions for their kids nowadays, especially with the costs of education where they are. So
I'm just, it's my son is just getting ready to go to school next year. He's going to Drexel in the fall.
Oh,
And I'm
great.
looking, and I was just on the phone with them asking about, because I get the bill. It's like, it's staggering, right? You look at the cost.
It's amazing. And especially in the legal community, these young lawyers that we hire now with the amount of debt they have, it's a really amazing. And I would expect it probably affects people's career trajectory. I mean, there's a lot of pressure, I think, on young lawyers to make money now, to start paying that debt down. even if it's not what they traditionally, I think, would have chose to do with their legal career. And it's probably negatively impacting, some of our more social service type jobs that lawyers could fill that just traditionally don't pay as much money. That those that really have that drive to do those type of jobs really
Yeah.
don't have the opportunity to do it out of law school.
So, so that's a good segue to ask you. I mean, what would you would you still recommend that somebody goes to law school, and if so, what should they think about?
I think law school, I think now is a good time to be in law school. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think the law firms seem to be hiring a lot more, looking for young lawyers. I think it is a great opportunity for a go-getter nowadays in the legal community to be a young lawyer. I mean, there's a lot of need, and so you could probably get as much experience as you wanted to, as quick as you wanted to, if you were focused and figured out, kind of what you wanted to focus on as part of your career. I do think if you've got a decision to make business wise, I mean, you have to look at really what you want to do with your law degree and decide if it's worth that investment. Unless you've got a great scholarship and that kind of thing, you really have to commit yourself to making a career of this if you're going to invest that type of money. So I definitely would encourage people, if it's something they're passionate about and they know they want to do, you can make a great career right now. Legal work seems to be booming right now. There's a lot of new legal fields. I mean, with the privacy rights and developing, continuing to be booms in employment law. Litigation is obviously big. Companies, a lot of mergers, acquisitions. The corporate world seems to be booming as well. So, if it's something you're passionate about, it would definitely be worth the investment as a young lawyer. But it definitely takes the commitment. I think too, unlike when I came out of law school, firms were hiring a lot more young lawyers. I think that is lessened. They're still hiring a lot, but there's that risk if you're not committed to doing what you need to do in law school and making sure you keep your grades. It may be something that you don't want to commit those resources to. But if ultimately that's what you want to do and you want to put in the work, there's a lot of opportunity right now for young lawyers.
Do law schools offer scholarships, need-based still?
They do, depending on the school. And I do think too, law school's one thing about it. If you're willing to put in the work as an undergrad and work hard towards a legal profession and apply to law school, there's a lot of scholarship money for those who are just high achievers and really put in the work to make good grades and get a good LSAT score. And so there are a lot of opportunities like that to get scholarships, and there are need-based as well. And frankly, too, law schools, there's your traditional law schools who are expensive as well, but they've had some newer law schools develop that are kind of focusing towards a lower price point. And adding some flexibility. So if you're someone who doesn't want to be in a big firm or go into big law immediately, and maybe you've got some other things you're interested in, you want to be a small town lawyer, there's some opportunities there to pick a school based on kind of what your outcome and what your career goals are. And maybe it's a lower price point and still get an amazing education. It's just not one that traditionally generates a lot of the big law type jobs.
Yeah, you're not going to get recruited from Simpson Thatcher, one of those places, right?
Right. It's going to be hard to make it to the Supreme Court as a clerk out of some law schools, but
yeah.
But if that's not your goal, then really, if you keep those in mind, it's like anything, though. I think the cost of education now is a cost benefit. We talked earlier about liberal arts degree. If you want to be a philosophy teacher, you have to really analyze, well, how much do I want to spend on an education based on the outcomes and the potential jobs I could get teaching philosophy, where depending on where I want to go.
Yeah.
And it may be that you could make a school decision based on those costs analysis.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. I mean, if I had to do it all over again, money, with the ability to finance it, getting an undergraduate degree like a liberal arts degree, I think is the way to go, to get a broad education and then go to professional school, right? Because I mean, to be successful in life and business, you got to be much broader, right, in your thinking, and have more of a expansive view than just a narrow,
Yeah.
trade, right? Don't you think?
I do, and I think it's good to be flexible. I mean, the joke about litigation attorneys is that you really don't want to focus on anything in particular. So every case is new and exciting because you're learning about a business, you're learning about a dispute, you're learning about a product or a law, and then you're advocating for it. You become kind of a mini expert on whatever you're in the lawsuit about. And so it kind of fascinates me now that there's so much focus as kids get into college on picking a major from day one or
Right.
deciding what they want to do. I felt like I benefited from the fact of getting kind of a general education and, figuring out what I wanted to do later. And I think that kind of a basic degree gives you that opportunity. Because nowadays, I mean, that's tough to make a decision as an 18-year-old what you want to focus on for the rest of your life. I mean, I don't think our generation had to do that.
No, it's really hard. But again, it's a luxury too, right? Because as we were saying, I mean, if you have to go out and start earning money, you got to kind of pick your lane here pretty
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But all things being equal, if you have the ability to get that broader education, I think it's in the end, it's better. So you just have a broader education about a lot of things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
know enough to be dangerous in every area.
oh yeah, for sure. Well, listen, I'll wrap it up here. What do you want people to know about your practice, to sum it up, and also what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if you want to learn more?
Yeah, if you want to learn more, my email is Ryan, RYAN.McComber, McComber @figdav.com. That's got my contact information on our website that I can be available. Just as far as my practice, I'm an advocate. I'm a great advocate for anyone who's any type of litigation dispute. If you need a good lawyer to walk you from beginning to end and help you make the right decisions on your case and give you the guidance you need to decide how you want to resolve dispute, that's kind of the focus of my practice. Some of my clients joke I'm a farmer, not a hunter. So I'm in it for the long haul, and I want to make lifelong clients and help them guide their business. And most of the times that means keeping them out of litigation is the best business decision. So if that's what it takes, and that's what my advice does, I can help them avoid the courtroom as well.
Excellent, good deal. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. This is Ryan McComber. I pronounced your name wrong, so I'm glad you said it. Said McComber like a typical Northeastern person.
Right.
With Figari and Davenport. And this show is sponsored by EmotionTrac, and we are a legal tech platform that helps litigators prepare for mediation and trial with our platform. We collect insights that help them figure out which way to go. So thank you very much, Ryan. It's a pleasure spending time with you.
Yeah, Jonathan, thanks. Appreciate it. Great.